I'm Sid Miller. I'm running for Texas Agriculture Commissioner. I served 6 terms in the Texas House, chaired the Agriculture and Livestock Committee, as well as the Homeland Security and Public Safety Committee, or the Gun Committee. I got into the race late. I've only been in a little over a month. Most of the guys have been running 4 or 5 months. I was recruited to run. I first had people in the agricultural industry calling me, asking me to get in the race. You know, the guys running are good guys, nice guys, but they're not really the face of agriculture. And then I had conservative leaders calling me across the state, asking me to get in the race. They said, you know, we really don't have a conservative in the race. We'd like for you to consider to get in the race. And then my colleagues in the Texas House, several of them called and said, you know, we really need you to get in this race. We really don't have an ag guy or a conservative in the race, and you're both. And then the front runner in the race, a good friend of mine, Brandon Creighton, called me and said, you need to get in the race because I'm getting out. I'm going to run for the Senate. So at that point, talked to my wife. We prayed about it. Give us, you know, very thoughtful consideration, and I'm in, and I'm in to win. And we're running hard. We immediately became the front runner in the race. A friend of mine that I worked with in the legislature on gun legislation, Ted Nugent, agreed to be my campaign treasurer and state co-chair. We worked together on the helicopter hog hunting bill, which eradicated 24,000 hogs last year. They do $500 million worth of damage each year in the state. So that was a battle we'd fought together and developed a friendship. So that's why I'm in, and that's why I'm running.
What is your opinion on the state of the Department of Agriculture right now? Do you feel that there's everything's in a good state of affairs, or do you feel that there's any areas that aren't necessary or too bloated that need to be cut?
You know, actually, having been chair of the Agriculture and Livestock Committee, we had jurisdiction over the Texas Department of Agriculture and the Agriculture Commission itself. So I have pretty deep working knowledge. I'm not going to say it wouldn't be a learning curve, but there won't be much of a curve for me to get up and running. Our current Agriculture Commissioner, Todd Staples, before that Susan Combs, before that Rick Perry, all 3 good, strong conservatives. They did a really good job running that agency. I would change the emphasis a little bit. Todd, his main emphasis was border security and securing the Texas border, which we worked hand in hand because I chaired the Homeland Security Committee, which had jurisdiction over securing the border and oversight over the Texas Rangers, fighting the drug cartels. I would change that focus, and that would not be my #1 focus. My #1 focus is going to be water. We have a finite amount of water in this state. We have over 25 million people now, and our water supplies are being taxed. In the last constitutional election, the voters approved another $2 billion to address this water need. And there has to be a balance between agriculture and urban and industrial needs. So we have a 50-year water plan. Now we have $8 billion. I'm going to want to make sure that that is implemented correctly in the most economically, in most feasible, reasonable way, and we address the critical needs areas first.
Now, you said $8 billion. Are you talking about the funds from the 2011 constitutional election?
We did two different constitutional elections.
$6 billion in bonds in 2011, and then $2 billion from the rainy day fund.
That's correct. Yeah.
On that subject, we did some research into the last Prop 2 from 2011.
Sure.
And the $6 billion in bonds are pretty much used for a myriad of issues or areas, but pretty much is very similar to what Prop 6 of this year covers, except one's bonds, one's cash.
That's right.
Our research indicates that only 6.5% of the 2011 funds have even been used.
That's correct.
Is there a reason that so little has been used so far, considering
Sure.
we're having so many issues?
These projects, you know, we're building the world's largest pipeline right now. The world's largest water project is being built in Texas. It's a pipeline from Lake Palestine all the way to Benbrook in the Fort Worth area. That's a 20-year project. Many of these projects are still in the design stage. We actually turned shovel on these projects yet. So we haven't allocated that money yet. We have to be very judicious about how we do that. We don't want to build a project before it's time, then the lake will silt in. We're going to build 11 lakes in the 50-year plan. We have our state divided into 16 different regions. Each of those regions are submitting and qualifying the projects that they want. Then we have to systematically go through those and rank those. So no, there has not been much money of it spent, but mainly because we're still in the planning stages of the 50-year plan.
Is there a set amount that can be, or that is set aside for agriculture?
In Proposition 6 that just passed, which I was a reluctant supporter of, you know, we had a budget that increased $25 billion. If water had been such a high priority, you know, it should have been in the budget. I disagree with rating the rainy day fund for that. However, of that $2 billion, there's only a 10% set aside for rural projects, agriculture. Now, that doesn't excite me a lot since I'm seeking the office of Texas Agriculture Commissioner. We have to have a balance. If we don't, and here's something that people need to understand, having a safe, secure, affordable food source for our families is actually a matter of national security. Let me explain that to you. If we come to the point where there's not many things we do better than anybody in the world. We don't produce all the oil and gas we need. We don't produce all the TVs or cell phones or a lot of things. One thing we do better than anybody on this planet is produce food and fiber. We produce enough for ourselves and for a big part of the rest of the world. If there comes a point in our time where we can no longer sustain ourselves, supply our own food, our own fiber, and we're dependent on a foreign power for that, we will lose all of our freedoms. So that's how important agriculture is to me.
Well, continuing on food, you know, as commissioner, you'll manage a number of loan, grant, and subsidy programs for farmers and rural communities. Should the state of Texas be in this financial services business, or should we promote the free market instead?
You know, I don't support subsidies. Actually, the Texas Department of Agriculture does not subsidize farmers. They do have some young farmer loans. You know, those are questionable, but you need to understand that the average age of the farmer and rancher in Texas is 62. We need to make a smooth, easy pathway for our younger generation to take over these family farms. Maybe they've never been in agriculture, but we need a pathway there for them to come in so we can have a sustainable food source for our future generations.
One other thing you'll be covering or managing is the school lunch and breakfast program. Right. And this year, SB 376, the House and Senate expanded that program, including more and more children in the free part of the program. Right. On the breakfast side. Will that make your job more difficult because it's expanded, and will you be able to increase the nutritional value of the food at the same time?
You know, I'm not much on the nanny state. You know, I think that's the parents and guardians, people that raise our kids. I don't believe it's the state's job or the government's job to do that. However, as Agriculture Commissioner, I do have a job and responsibility to administer that program. I will make sure that it is administered in the most reasonable way possible, physically most responsible way possible, while maintaining the nutritional value to our children. I'm not a big fan of the cupcake law. You know, I'd like to see that done away with.
One of the other things that y'all do is promote organic products, and I know in some circles there's been a lot of concerns by property rights advocates and organic farmers of the threat of being sued by big GMO, genetically modified seed manufacturers because of contamination of their seed. Where do you stand on that issue? You know,
GMOs, genetically modified organisms, if you're for it, it's biotechnology. If you're against it, it's frankenfood. Basically, we have a finite amount of farmland, which we're losing more and more of every day. But our world population is growing and growing. So we have to be innovative. We do have to have biotechnology. There's room for both. They don't have to be contaminated. There's certainly, you know, those folks that want to do the organic farm, that's great. We just can't do it on the scale to feed the world.
Should they be protected from lawsuits because of accidental contamination of their seed?
Well, it's a tough question. We have to hold people responsible. They can't just willy-nilly, you know, let their GMO flow over on another person. So we need to hold them responsible. Now, do we need to be a litigious society over that? No. But we do need to have guidelines and rules, and they need to be followed. So both people can survive, both segments of the agriculture industry can be successful, because there's room for both, absolutely.
Last night, Dallas Morning News reported that you loaned yourself $10,000 back in 2000.
Right.
And charged yourself 10% interest, and in 2012 collected $21,000 in interest.
Right. Paid myself back with interest.
Yeah. An ethics complaint was filed against you, and would you like to share your side of that story?
Sure. You know, I got a memorandum from the Ethics Commission saying that they do not condone filing these frivolous ethics complaints. Just because you file an ethics complaint doesn't mean it's true, and that's this case. I guess the encouraging thing about this, I'm obviously the front runner. They wouldn't be they can't win on the issues. They can't win on the endorsements. So the opposition is resorted to, you know, to slinging mud. I'm disappointed that it would start this early. There's absolutely nothing to the allegations. When I first ran in 2000, I didn't have a chance of winning. I was a third-tier candidate, and there's only 3 tiers. Republican had never held the office, and I was running against an incumbent Democrat. To get started, I put $10,000 in the bank. I'd never filled out an ethics form before. There was a place on there for a loan. It was a loan. They said, what is the interest rate? I just made an operating loan at my bank at 10%. Sounds high now, but at that time that was the going rate. So I put it on there. I wasn't going to leave it blank. You know, I wanted to make everything right. Actually, when I put that money in there, I figured I was probably just flushing it down the toilet. I'd never be able to repay myself. And most other people
could be your own loan shark. And
yeah, you know. So the likelihood of ever even repaying the loan, much less with interest, was pretty remote. So that was absolutely not the purpose of it.
Are you going to use the quote profits from the loan to finance your campaign right now?
I've already put that money and more back into the campaign. Yes. What you need to keep in mind too, the reason that loan was never paid off is in 6 elections I had 15 opponents. I never caught a break. I was always running. And I never got ahead enough to where I could take that, I felt that I could safely take that out. So I just left it in there because I always needed it.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't like I was hoarding it, wanting the interest to grow. It's like I never could get ahead enough to repay it was the problem.
Okay. One thing you did mention was you know, controlling feral hogs.
Sure.
And Houston Chronicle came out with an article saying that there's about 2.6 million feral hogs in Texas. Right. We kill about 700,000 a year, and that's not even close to stabilizing the population. To stabilize, you'd have to kill about 70%. Do you have a plan or proposal on how to reach that goal of stabilization?
Well, one of the things we did, or the legislation that I passed, they call it the pork chopper bill, the helicopter hog hunting. We took a liability for the farmer and rancher. They were having to hire these helicopters, pay their gunners to come in and do depredation, take these animals off their land. Very expensive cost to have a helicopter do that. What my legislation did was flip that and allow that farmer and rancher to sell that seat on that helicopter to someone that wanted to go up and gun hogs. So now then, like I said, we took 24,000 last year, and we've taken a whole new industry, created a whole new industry We have 130 licensed operators now for these helicopter hog hunts, and now we've taken an expense that the farmer and rancher was having to incur and turned it into an asset, or actually generating money for the farm and ranch. So it's working real well, and it continues to expand. Well, now, we can't stop there. Australia has a method of sterilization that looks like it may work. We would hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years we'll have that available, and it would sterilize the male or female animal depending on which way they go with it. And the problem with feral hogs is they have 2 litters a year. They have 6 to 8 hogs per year, and as one legislator said, 10 of the 6 or 8 live. Now, that's a joke, obviously, but they are very, very prolific. There's no saying in the farming industry. If you need to build your mortgage, just get some hogs, because you'll increase your numbers real quick.
Back to water. Department of Agriculture oversees a lot of conservation programs. What other ways can the Department of Agriculture, under your guys,
sure,
increase the supply of water or encourage,
One thing we have to do, and the easiest to do and the cheapest to do, is conservation. Now, farmers and ranchers have been doing this for some time through the EQIP program, where they come in and take out non-efficient irrigation systems, where they have huge evaporation, runoff. That's eliminated through technology, more modern methods of irrigating crops. The next level that we need to address, there was a recent report just put out by the Texas Water Development Board, that some of our larger cities, from the time they receive the water till they deliver it to the customer, are losing up to 30%. That's unacceptable. That's the first place we need to address it, is in conservation. Farmers and ranchers are doing a pretty good. There's still room for improvement, but we've got to get on that city level, because they're the largest consumer of our water, and make sure that we're not losing that through old pipelines or connections or other means of loss.
All right, well, I appreciate you joining us. How can more people find out about your campaign?
Well, we're doing good. I mean, from right off the start, we became the front runner. We've received every endorsement from every conservative leader, every conservative group that has endorsed so far in the campaign, from Texas Right to Life, Young Conservatives of Texas, Empower Texas, Eagle Forum with Kathy Adams, just right on down the list. So we're doing good. If they would like to find out more in depth about our campaign, they can visit our website, which is miller4texas.com, www.miller4texas.com.
All right, well, I appreciate it, and best of luck to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.